Let's get a move on, everybody. Now we're going to start actually implementing the 5S step. So previous video laid out all 5 answers and responses. What you're hopefully seeing here on the video is the questionnaire, the actual Word doc that you're going to have to fill out to answer and document your work. Okay, so previous video answered all 5 S's in the method there. And there was a 6th step as a bonus. Talk about towards the end, but you'll need to fill in each of those 5 steps there. Now the first step should become pretty obvious here. I can even give you the hint. It is the sorting step. Okay? In the videos, I say pretty clearly, and hopefully I'll mark it out for you, don't confuse this with that in terms of the process. Okay? This is going to require some effort as a hint. Okay? The sorting step should become pretty obvious after watching the video, but you are going to pull all, keyword all, items from the place that you're trying to improve out and lay hands on them, and then what you're going to have to describe in this in your response here is what you do with those items once they are all out and in the open. Okay? And that I will then help to identify in the video that if you keep watching at least 3 of the best practices. There might be a few more buried in there, but there's 3 key things that you kind of got to do, at least in terms of separating those items out. Okay, so you can say distinctly, you create this area, and that area. At least that's a minimum of 3 best practices. There may be a few more. And that, according to that, oh, there goes the dog again. And then for the question 3 here, this is going to be where you're going to insert images of the work that you actually do to the space that you want to improve. Okay? So don't jump into this assignment without actually setting your scope of the project and your requirements, which was a previous activity. But at this point, I'm going to expect you, based off the example that I've given through the video, go, okay, I'm going to get to work doing this. And you're going to set out and actually do the first step of the 5s activity. And you should then be able to take, say, an image or several images of the results of these sorting steps. Okay? Where we go from here will come next. There's going to be one major, the next step is kind of going to be the major one where even more work's going to happen. There's maybe a little bit of time sensitivity, but I'm trying to space this out a little bit. If you were actually doing a 5S improvement activity in the workplace, you would want to have this whole project wrapped up. They usually have Kaizen events, improvement events that take like a week, a focused week of activity to get all of this stuff done. Now, we're stretching our project out potentially over a few weeks, which could make things a little bit challenging. But what I'm expecting you to do is on a weekly basis here, until the end of the term, we're going to focus on each of the remaining steps and talk about and think about that. May make it a little bit more challenging because if you do the sorting step, and then still have to occupy and work in your space, that may create some issues, but we'll see how it goes. I'm going to give some leniency there. I'm talking and rambling a little bit here, but it hopefully will make more sense once we get into it. So in this assignment, we're doing the first step, sort. So watch the rest of this video for a little bit more clue as to how to do this. We're going to get into the videos here about how to do the first step, which is sort. But before we get into that, I want to talk in general. Those 5 steps in the 5S process can be explained pretty simply in single words in 5 steps. Do not confuse that simplicity with easy. There's gonna be a lot of effort involved with each of those steps, and especially at the first step, the sorting, of actually getting in there, laying hands on all the objects that you're trying to will eventually put and set in their place. But you're gonna have to put a lot of effort into this. So don't confuse simplicity with easy. Let's get on with the show. Here we go. Let's get into the meat of this. We're now going to start our actual sorting task in the 5S system. Step number 1 for sort. There's actually going to be some steps or what I will say best practices involved with this. But to begin, you do need to take a little bit of preparation. What you're going to do is you're going to set up a keep. There I go. I've got a keep area. A donate, relocate. In my case, I don't think I'm going to be donating much, but relocate is going to be something that I'm going to need to do for a lot of the items. And then the throwaway area. Hey, guess what? That should look familiar to everybody. I highly recommend this for you all. Start with the same thing. Keep, donate, relocate, which for you may be something different, or just relocate or donate, depending on what you're doing, okay? Throw away. Those three things is how we're going to start with this. Now, let's see if I can put this to work. Didn't quite do that effectively over here. We'll keep that out of the frame, but as my desk currently stands right here and the stuff in here, okay, we're going to get that set up, okay? Then we're going to have the next best practice coming up. What I'm going to do here, you'll see, hopefully time-lapsed here, gather all. Now I write in all caps, I underline double twice there, all items in the area, and put in the correct bin. Now, you may struggle a little bit with the donate, relocate, but right now, don't get too caught up. If you aren't certain, put it in the keep right now, and then you may have to make some harder choices a little bit way down the line. But let's not get hung up. So, dive in there. Let's get it done. Let's see how I can do. Before I forget too, just a note on the boxes or the containers that you use here. Getting back to my whole thing, you can see my family. These are standard bins. Note the clarity to be able to see into them. That's going to come in at a later point too. But in our case here, if you're doing your sorting step, it doesn't matter what type of receptacle it is. If you've got a whole bunch of Amazon boxes kicking around, something like that, just simple cardboard boxes that you can identify, keep, relocate, donate, and then hopefully just a garbage can that just goes straight to garbage. Doesn't matter the fanciness of it. Just grab 3 bins and containers that you can put stuff in. Or you could even designate, I don't recommend it necessarily, but it will work in a pinch. If you designate a portion of a clean desktop, if you've got it, say over there would be keep, in the middle would be donate or something, and then you got a garbage can as a garbage can. That can work too. However, you can see my flat tabletop surfaces. So really highest recommended here, some sort of a containery box. Checking in from the shop as an example of 5s sorting. I did this coming back documenting a couple days and weeks ago as I had some alone time in here. So all the new stuff, this was going back through tooling that was already here. It had been in that drawer, cut set of drawers. If you can see now, every single one of these drawers is empty, needs to get vacuumed out and cleaned. But this was the step of sorting through, putting like items with like items. More than likely, all of these things will be still kept. The stuff down on the mid shelf down here was things that still have to get sorted through. Some of them are definitely keepers. Others had been donated at different points, so I tried to band those together. Over here was also sorting through. You can see that I put like-ish items, hex wrenches. These things are called files. I put those together with each other. These were oiling cans and lubricants and dispensing stuff. Cable ties together, see all that? This is going to be new tooling altogether. And then over here, you see the red tag. These are the things that I for sure needed to get out and get rid of. And those gloves maybe are okay, but all this other stuff, if nothing else, these things could not stay in here. These are all donated inserts that are probably worth more turned into scrap than they are in the current form. Again, stacked. Even to check new stuff in, this is an example of sorting like items with like items to count up and make sure that I had everything here. So that's, I don't know, several $1,000s worth of new holders and stuff stacked out, okay? So that's an example of the sorting steps and the best practices of grouping like items with like items, determining what's a keeper, what's a potentially needs additional sorting or at least to go someplace else, and what's more than likely just got to either get scrapped out, donated to somebody else, or just out and away. All right. So, case in point, action. You can see I've still got more work to go over here, but yeah, take it in small bites. All right, what would it be in my class without a little bit of the philosophical and the thought and the human approach to things? Now, I forgot to mention on this whole sort thing. So, note, you are dealing in your personal spaces here. Okay, sentimentality. I'll throw up a picture of my grandpa at some point. I mentioned on this before. So, and this is just stuff in general. For items being discarded or donated rather, this comes from the Marie Kondo kind of concept of that does it spark joy thing. I mean, that's part of the decision coming back. I'm digressing here back to this. The whole keep, donate, relocate, throw away thing. There's that whole thing in your personal space of does this bring me joy, okay? There are certain things practically that do those clippers necessarily bring me joy? No, but they're functional. Has my wife left them outside to rust? Yeah, is that good? No, not so much. That comes back to generally respecting the things that you do own, which comes back to the stuff. So, yes, there's a number of hand tools that I have that do actually spark joy. Okay, great. But there may be some other sentimental things and keepsakes around your shop that you just can't, or your workspace or whatever, that you can't quantify economically or practically, but pictures up there, they're priceless. So you do need to make space for that sort of stuff in your personal area and all the rest. Okay, that's important in personal areas. When you get out into the working environment, sometimes you want to leave that personally stuff at the door, and it's going to be much more, is this thing actually been in use? Is it going to add value to the operation here? I'm keeping a lot of this stuff to a certain degree because, yes, this can add value. It's just not in the right spot. Now, these things down here that carry some sentimentality for me because they kicked around in Grandpa's shop forever, and his mentality was at the time, Max, not Mr. Foreman, don't throw it away because you'll never know when you need it. As soon as you throw it away, you'll need it. I'll put it this way. My grandfather lived for 98 years, and I inherited so much of his stuff that he still never made use of that it's now, to a certain degree, loved Grandpa, but been a slight burden on the functionality of my garage. So there is a point at which I'm going to have to say thank you for your service and laying in wait. Guess what? I'm going to be responsible and take you to the metal salvage recycler so that you could get melted down and turned into something else useful in the future. But for me, it's just a weight hanging around my neck. But you can see right now, I did gather these things up in those boxes. That's how I've dealt with that sentimental issue, is to at least sort through it and get it going. So, with dealing with your personal lives, I think this is one of the most valuable things you can walk away with, is finding a balance of the emotional and the objective in your personal spaces, okay? That, I think, is something you will be able to take with you the rest of your life. We'll talk about when we get into the next step of things. Marie Kondo has some ways of doing things that work in the personal realm, not so much maybe in the industrial realm, but I'll try and talk about the differences there. But do not forget to thank some of those items that you have a hard time getting rid of. And also, one more little thing. Be mindful that everything that we do buy, just because you don't know the person that made those things, like got no idea who made that little clamp over there, whether it be in this country, any of the other countries in the world that actually do produce stuff for us. With my background, I've always known that however chintzy the thing is that you buy, somebody put effort into making that thing, and that is of value. So maybe you'll hear it first. Hopefully this will encourage you to take on not more of the consumer economy mentality, but I dare like to say the connoisseur economy that we could jump over to. Really valuing and knowing the things that you're purchasing with purpose and reason, and really treating them well. I don't want to get my spouse into it too much, but we've got about 5 sets of those Corona nice clippers that have all seen the same sort of fate. So take care of your stuff and really buy things of nice quality. Look after them so you don't have to send a lot of stuff. That's really just paper, fortunately. But anyway, another side thought there. Life philosophy. Okay?